There are currently 5 wide receivers that I cannot stop drafting for fantasy football in 2026, and the first one is none other than Josh Downs. And I know every single year it feels like we do this, but this year it's going to work out. I promise I do. I truly do believe that, though. Josh Downs right now is going in the 9th round of Underdog drafts. He's going at pick 97, and to me, he completely falls in that category of wide receivers that are going to outperform their current ADPs in 2026. I want to believe that Josh Downs, his talent didn't go anywhere. He just got less opportunities. And now that Michael Pittman Jr. is out of the equation, he is going to benefit from that. Of course, Alec Pierce is going to be the one that benefits the most, but let's back up to some of the stats from the previous years with the Colts. The Colts went from playing 24.8% of their offensive snaps with 2+ tight ends on the field, that was 2023 to 2024, to 35.6% in 2025. And again, it's because Tyler Warren came to town, so we kind of understand that part. But Josh Downs, according to ESPN, played just 26 snaps in 12 and 13 personnel in 2025. So when we all look at this, the Colts went from running 11 personnel on 74% of their offensive snaps in 2023 to 2024 to just 63% of their snaps in 2025. Put all that together, Josh Downs is still talented. He was just carved out of a role last season. So Alec Pierce is definitely going to have the majority of the targets. We have him projected for 100 targets, 58 receptions, 925 receiving yards in 2026. But Josh Downs is not that far behind him. 98 targets, 70 receptions, 699 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns. The other part to this is that Daniel Jones hopefully is going to be good to go for week 1. We've gotten good news throughout his recovery process, but we have to remember that he is coming off a really awful Achilles injury, and we have to assume that he's going to be way less mobile than what he was at in 2025. So when you do that and you take Michael Pittman Jr. out of the equation, more targets are opening up in the underneath and intermediate areas of the field where I think Downs can thrive, along with, of course, Tyler Warren. We cannot forget about him. But Daniel Jones will probably want to get the ball out way quicker than what we saw last season. Enter Josh Downs. So at the end of the day, I really like his price. You're not paying a premium for him, and he's not going to be someone that breaks your fantasy team if you take a bet on him. I would just believe that he is going to drastically outperform that ADP. The next wide receiver that I cannot stop drafting is Terry McLaurin, wide receiver for the Washington Commanders. I promise you, Matthew Berry did not make me say this. I really just like targeting him in the range that he's going. 4th round on Underdog, around pick 45 if you're drafting today. And to me, I look around and I say, who the heck else is Jayden Daniels going to throw the ball to? And that is no offense to Antonio Williams, who I love drafting in Dynasty. That is no offense to Chig Okonkwo, who is one of my most drafted tight ends. I'll talk about that a little bit later in another video. But to me, Terry McLaurin and everyone else, when you look at the projections we have for him, 113 targets, 75 receptions, 1,045 receiving yards, and 6 touchdowns. I know that is not close to what we saw 2 years ago. 13 touchdowns in that season with Jayden Daniels in his rookie year, second most among wide receivers, but I do think we fall somewhere in the middle, and I do not think we're going to see a season like last year. We have to remember, Terry McLaurin missed 7 games last season. Jayden Daniels, his quarterback, also missed 10. Like, it was an injury-riddled season that was awful, and I think the injuries can also be attributed to the summer contract dispute, right? He was holding out. I think that derailed some of the preparation that he's usually used to, and that means you miss a little bit of games, especially for an older wide receiver. So I'm back in on Terry McLaurin, especially at that price, especially because the Commanders just didn't do as much this offseason as I thought that they were going to do to help support Jayden Daniels a little bit more. This was a team that was, routinely, being reported that they were going to potentially get like Jordyn Tyson, someone like that. So when you don't do that, Terry McLaurin is a benefactor of that. So again, all the projections are right in his lane. I think one of the bigger question marks that I'm going to have that could really derail this is David Blau and their new offensive coordinator. This is going to be the first time that he's calling plays. He is already saying that he's going to run things differently. So he's saying the right things for us. According to ESPN, he's got a quote out that said he's going to, quote, run a more traditional NFL offense. When we look at what Cliff Kingsbury was doing in the past, he had the team operating exclusively almost out of like the shotgun pistol formation. So we're going to see probably a change there, and hopefully it's for the better with Jayden Daniels. It can't get much worse than what happened last season, but again, those two were injured. So I think just at the price that we see Terry McLaurin going right now, he is a great wide receiver too, and I do think he gives you wide receiver 1 upside. Another wide receiver that I cannot stop drafting is DeVonta Smith, wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles, and I do not know if you've heard, but A.J. Brown Brown's out of the picture now. No, just kidding. Of course you heard that. It was the worst kept secret in the NFL. He's taking his talents over to New England, but that means DeVonta Smith is going to thrive in this offense. A.J. Brown is vacating a career 30.5% target share in Philadelphia. Yes, others are going to step up. Mekhi Lemon is someone they drafted in the first round. They went out and got Dontavian Wicks this offseason. They went out and got Hollywood Brown. Yes, all of those guys are going to do a bit better, but it's going to be DeVonta Smith that just devours targets. We've got him projected for 122 targets, 89 receptions, 1,148 receiving yards, and then 7 touchdowns. Since 2022 with DeVonta Smith, he is averaging 19.3 points per game when seeing at least a 30% target share. He has also averaged 82 receiving yards in the 43 career games in which he's seen at least 7 targets. So this is putting him on the JSN trajectory. I know some might roll their eyes because they're just like, that's not going to happen with Jalen Hurts and this offense, and I get that. But I think the idea here of people like me saying this is that if DeVonta Smith gets the kind of target share that JSN got last season, he could have the same kind of outcome. Again, yes, you're going to boost guys like Mekhi Lemon. We've got him projected for 99 targets. Dontavian Wicks is getting 44. Hollywood Brown is getting 16. They're going to get those guys involved. But to me, I just really like DeVonta Smith. Again, going in the 3rd round, he's going around pick 30, and I would probably, it's probably going to be fair to say that he's going to get more expensive as the summer continues to roll on and as we get closer to actual fantasy football season, but I just cannot stop drafting him. Now, if you know me, you know that I was probably going to bring up Jordyn Tyson at some point in this video, and we are here. Jordyn Tyson is another wide receiver that I cannot stop drafting here in these Underdog best ball drafts. He's going right now pick 63, so that puts him firmly in the 6th round. I believe he's going to get more and more expensive as the summer goes on, but Jordyn Tyson is an Arizona State alum, again, forks up, but he suffered a lot of injuries in college, so that's something that we cannot ignore. He had multiple injuries throughout his college career, but his upside here is unmatched, and I think he is a perfect fit for just this Saints team. When we look at him, he had 47% of Arizona State's receiving yards. He saw the most unrealized air yards among all wide receivers over the past 2 seasons, despite missing those games that I just mentioned here. So the Saints play indoors. They have an offense that ranked 1st in no huddle rate and plays per minute during Kellen Moore's first season last year, and Kellen Moore is a head coach that I just really believe in. We love offensive-minded head coaches here. When they got rid of Rashid Shaheed, to another point, he vacated a 22% target share when he went to the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. So I think that Jordyn Tyson is going to fill in here, and I do believe it's going to be more of a 1A, 1B situation when we're comparing him to Chris Olave. When we look at the projections just for Jordyn Tyson, 119 targets, 77 receptions, 933 receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns. Like, sign me up for Jordyn Tyson this season, especially at the place that he's going on Underdog. Tyler Shuck also showed us some promise here. So we kind of remember all of this. He was the guy that you could stream at the end of the year. But once he became the starter in week 9 last season, he was the QB 12 in points per game. So it's going to be a taller ask for Tyler Shuck to be the guy that not only supports Chris Olave as a fantasy relevant wide receiver, but Jordyn Tyson as well. I do believe he can step up to that challenge. Now, in a few months, if we have to come back to this video and Tyler Shuck turned back into a pumpkin, that's going to be a totally different conversation. That's not going to be as fun. But I definitely see Tyler Shuck as more of this, mid-tier QB2 and someone that can support both Chris Olave and Jordyn Tyson. So that is why he is one of my favorite wide receivers to draft. Parker Washington is the last wide receiver that I cannot stop drafting over there in Jacksonville. He is going in the 6th round of Underdog drafts, pick 70 right now, and another one that I think is just going to get more expensive as the summer goes on. But we saw him completely emerge last season in this offense. Travis Hunter went down, and he really stepped up. Brian Thomas Jr. wasn't playing well either, so he just really fit well in this Liam Cohen offense. He had a great connection with Trevor Lawrence, and in 21 games, so since the start of 2024, in which he had a route participation above 50%. We've seen Parker Washington handle a 20% target share, and he has also averaged 12.2 fantasy points per game. So the big questions here in Jacksonville are just if they're going to start to become like the Green Bay Packers. Like, are they going to continue to spread the ball around, or is it going to be funneled through one guy? And I still think that is up for debate. The other question that I have and concern that could happen with Parker Washington is what happens when Travis Hunter does return. Is he going to truly be a split between wide receiver, cornerback? Is he going to go play more on defense? If he plays more at wide receiver, who's he going to eat into there? And I think those are all valid concerns. But Washington often operated from the slot 65% of the time. And I think the biggest risk is Travis Hunter returning and taking some of that ability away from him. When we look at our projections at fantasylife.com, it is completely spread out. 102 targets for Parker Washington, 102 for Brian Thomas Jr., and 100 for Jacoby Myers. Dwayne McFarland has said before that if someone is telling you that they know exactly what's going to happen in Jacksonville between these wide receivers, they're kind of lying, because it feels like no one does. But I'm making a bet on Parker Washington also because I really like the price. I thought that some of these guys would be a little bit more expensive here, but Brian Thomas Jr. is actually the one that's going off the board first compared to all of these wide receivers for Jacksonville. He's going to pick 64, so same range in the 6th round. But I really do like Parker Washington's talent, and I believe that even though he is not a sure bet, he's going off the board closer to wide receiver 40, and I think he has the upside to totally outperform that ADP.